Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Just getting set up. Got a little drawing warm-up practice here. Is it magnetic? I forget. Nope. Good morning, everybody. Popping in. Set this down over here. Good morning. Got my little pose machine here. Don't fall down, everybody. A little pose setup. Is that thing the overhead's working a little janky. It's okay. Should be okay, I think. Good morning, everybody. Popping in and out. How are we doing? Good morning, people popping in. forgot to, there you go, hit that button too, as usual. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, people popping in. How we doing? Happy Saturday, right? The day after the day. Mm-hmm. Good morning. Yeah, it's always me again, If you show up here, I might show up at some point, right? It's entirely possible. You gotta do something while the dog is sleeping, right? I'm just drawing out of my head. I've got these. This isn't the one I'm drawing from, obviously, because I don't want to change the pose. But I bought a bunch of these little characters, and I bought a little group of 6 of them. Something stuttering up there on my camera. I'm not sure why. Maybe my ancient MacBook needs to be restarted at some point. But I'm sketching from that, and then I've got some reference for like urban outfits or something up here, so I might use one of those once I get the pose worked out. But I thought these were, interesting kind of action figures as reference tools. Been looking at them for a while. They're the T13 figures. Anyway, I have a set of 6 of them, so they come in a bunch of different colors. So there's a couple of them right there. They're very posable, and I like the proportions on them. I think they're pretty handy as far as these goes. I had like these old Spider-Man 1 and 2 action figures that I liked, but I think these actually might be better in certain ways. Spider-Mans do have movable fingers. Not all the joints of the fingers move, but the yeah, any hard plastic toy is not going to be a joy to step on, but I keep them up on my desk, so I'm not that's not a concern over here. So I'm trying to work on kind of more invented poses, and yeah, well, I'm trying to sort out the pose. I like to rough it in with one color and then come back in and select what I want to keep. No, it's just it's a 2 millimeter lead inside, um, just orange. I like the warmth on the paper. I could use red too. I've got red ones over here, but I need to stick them in one of these sharpeners, spin it around, get super sharp. They have these for like the regular pencil leads too. Like I've got a F pencil over here that I'll be using probably for the drawing. Yeah, so this is thicker, obviously, than the short, the 0.5 millimeter. This is full 2 millimeters, so it's quite, yeah, it's like a pencil lead that you get inside of a pencil, right? Um, yeah, these don't break that easily. I do have the black ones that I got that do break more easily. These are from Statler. They come in. I mean, Statler's a pretty well regarded brand. I had a hard time finding like black lead, and it's like it's okay, but it's really soft. But this is the comes in these little kits like this. So you pull it back, and there's a bunch of them in here. Reeves for pencil lead. So I had a hard time finding different colored ones. So like this is black. So this isn't like lead. This is black colored. Um, yeah, it works pretty good, I think. But that one is definitely softer than this stuff is, and it breaks more easily. Yeah, well, I have a softer touch, but yeah, but I do put a lot of lines down for these, so I'm just trying to like figure out better rhythms and connections and things like that as I'm working, kind of design it with the orange. Um, First, much like you would do like with a comic thing. One of the things that I've been kind of working on the last I don't know year or so is kind of improving my character sketching skills, people sketching in terms of out of imagination. I've taught figure drawing for 20 years, so I'm pretty comfortable. You put me down in front of a model, I can draw the figure really easily. Um, but I've never really focused a lot on like the characters stuff as much, in terms of like invented characters and all of that. So I've kind of made that a big part of what I've been working on the last year. Um, and So part of it's kind of the job that I have now. It kind of makes it more important that I improve that skill significantly, because I teach concept drawing, concept painting, and things like that. And so, again, professionally, I mostly did environments. I did do characters sometimes, um, but but it wasn't that common for me to do that. So I wanted to kind of really take some time to improve that. Yeah, so yeah, drawing more stuff from imagination, and making things up that don't exist. Definitely having. It's always good to have reference, generally speaking, but yeah. So yeah, concept drawing is it's like people that come up with the characters for video games or movies, and they design their costumes and how they look and how they act and what they do. Yeah, they also do things maybe for comic books to a certain degree, but usually it's for larger productions. So when you watch like How to Train Your Dragon or something, somebody sat down and figured out what all the drawings of the dragons look like before they started making the dragons, and so it's pretty big profession. Um, but I've worked at video game companies before and had them as clients, but again I was mostly an environments guy, so drawing how how the scenes should look and what things there are in there and how to work with them rather than the characters. Yeah, it's just another cheap shot-for-shot remake that removes all of the character, wit, and charm of the original. I have no idea how it'll do. I know Disney's had trouble with their live-action remakes lately. Um, I know some of them done really well. I think the Lion King one did really, really well, even though people hated it. Like, it made a lot of money. I think The Little Mermaid didn't do that well. And I know they've had a lot of problems making the Snow White movie that's coming out soon. But I don't, yeah, but I'm not, I don't have any interest in seeing the new Dragon movie at all. If other people want to see it, I guess that's fine. I don't want to go see it. Yeah, but it literally just looks like they just reshot the cartoon, just removed all the things that made it really cool. Um, yeah, so yeah, that trailer just came out the other day. And isn't Astrid supposed to be like super blonde or something, if I recall? Um, so she looks more generic in that film because they kept her hair brown. Well, the funny about the live action remakes for some of them, like say the Lion King, it's like, well, it's actually just a 3D movie. It's not live action. It just kind of looks like live action. It would have been interesting if they'd done it like as a figured out a way to do it as like a documentary. Because I know Disney used to do these kind of documentary style films back in the day where they would just like film animals and then have like a voiceover to tell you a story, whether it was true or not. Um, but like I think the was it The Great Journey or something like that movie about the dog and the cat trying to get home. The Incredible Journey, maybe that's what it was called. But they just like had this dog and cat running around in the woods for however long, taking shots of them. But or it'd be something about like a coyote, telling some story about a coyote that they were following. It could have been like 15, 20, 30 different coyotes they actually took images of, but they used that footage to kind of tell a story about that animal or about an animal. Um, that would have been a way more interesting Lion King film if they'd been able to figure out how to shoot that. Um, so, um, yeah, it's like it's like predators. Really, most of what predators do most of the time, they're not hunting most of the time. They're sleeping most of the time. So they'll sleep until they get hungry again, or hang out till they get hungry again, and then go on the hunt. Yeah, they just really just hang out, most of the time, eating and, sometimes they'll play a little bit or whatever. Mostly they're just kind of hanging out, relaxing, unless, something happens where they feel like they need to do something. So, yeah, but yeah, it's like, like I said, like my dog, like he spends most of his time sleeping. Or if he have a cat, right? Cats spend most of their time sleeping, even in the wild. You go out and find a lion in the woods or whatever, in the savannah. Oh, hello, Bosh. You decided to get up? Well, he's not sleeping now. Probably just heard him shake. Um, but tried making ramen today. Well, was it microwave ramen or was it like real ramen? I see. Oh yeah, yeah, that's why you have to do things more than once, right? Typically. I don't know. Hey, Bosh, what you doing? Dog just came around to say hi. I think he wants something, but I don't know what it is yet, so we'll figure that out eventually, I suppose. Maybe he's just figuring out if he wants something. Alright, what are we doing for like a outfit here? Cargo shorts. Flared jeggings. See if I've got any I'll have a good time at work. Hopefully the drawing will come out okay. You won't have a good time. A lot of times, work, it can be good depending on who you're working with, right? That often makes a big difference. Even if the job is kind of boring or whatever, as long as you can work with like good people, that often makes up for a lot. Yeah, she should have a name. Maybe Billy or Frank. Just the iPhone camera can be zoomed in a little bit here. Good morning, people popping in. Good morning, everybody popping in. How we doing? Good morning. Good morning, people popping in. How we doing? Good morning, people coming in. Good morning, everybody popping in. How are we doing for time? 49 minutes in. All right, so see if we can finish this up. Sleepy dog. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Saturday. It's the most sadder of days, right? Yep, definitely the most sadder of days. It's an important day to get all of your sitting in, right? That's what Saturday is for. That's what I think, anyway. The sitting isn't going to happen all by itself, right? That's what I always tell my students, Drawings ain't going to draw themselves, same with the sitting, right? Ain't gonna... It's important life principle, I say. No one in particular. I'm working on some pose practice, so I bought these little kit of these little figures. If you go on Amazon, there you go look under T13. These were pre-assembled, but I like the proportions on them and all that. But I'm using them to kind of practice on. So I have a group of them like up over there, and so this one's in a pose up there. Kind of playing off of that, and then trying to overlay, the anatomy and the clothing and things like that with it. So I bought a set of 6. I think I bought it was like $25 or something. Usually they range between 25 and 30 for that many. I think individually you can buy them for $6 to $8 or $9 depending on the one. Historically, I've used I have these Spider-Man figures that I bought a long time ago, for the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and they're pretty good. I like these ones better though. They got little magnets on their feet, and which I think helps them stand up. Because I have a drafting table here, and so I can I use a lot of magnets on it to hold things up. Like this wood thing right here has magnets underneath it, and lets me lets me kind of put up the desk without things falling down. So I put a big metal sheet on this desk, and then yeah, so it's a big drafting table, and then I bought a sheet of metal that goes on top, and super thin gauge metal sheet. It's actually funny when they delivered I went to, it was a place called Metal Mart, like Walmart but metal, and Kmart or whatever, and they sell, can get custom metal pieces and all that. So I measured this out, went down there and ordered it, and when they delivered it, the delivery guy, he pulled over this nearby like dance school place that's like around just like one corner over, to kind of figure out where I was at and give me a call. He wasn't sure where he could park properly, and as he tries to back out of this dance studio, he backs right into a street sign. Hello over there on Kick. Couple people coming in over there, but I thought it was kind of funny. I mean, he was a little bit annoyed. Probably had to pay for a new sign. They did to replace it eventually, but I saw him afterward, calling it in. But everyone makes mistakes out there. He's gonna back into a person, right? That's more of a concern. But yeah, that was when they delivered it. Anatomy important. Well, obviously, drawing the figure itself is really important, right? So if you have like a local figure drawing session that you can go to, that can be really, really helpful. Obviously, one of the things that I've had my students do, I've taught figure drawing for a long time. Again, I feel like I'm much better at drawing the figure from life than from imagination, I think. But one of the things I have them do is they have to do draw-overs of anatomy, so the skeleton and the muscles, over Masterworks. And then when they do that, so they pick like a Caravaggio or Velasquez or some kind of old master thing, and then when they do that, after they do the master one, then they have to also do it over their own drawings. And they make a lot of mistakes doing it, because often people draw the bones too thick. They don't realize how thin they are. So that can be really, really helpful for mastering anatomy. Simplifying things to a certain degree, at least at the beginning, is really helpful. So like having a simple list of names. Like you don't need to know all the forearm muscle names right away, but you need to know the groups. Um, I should do a comic. I've never really done one. I did a little kind of test run using the Blade Runner movie script. I need to get back to finishing my own, and then I need to make some decisions about the character designs because I've been kind of going back and forth on it. Um, but this is just figure practice, so. Um, that sounds like a lot of work. What is my favorite animated show? That's a tough one. Um, when I was a kid, that was when the Batman the Animated Series was coming out, and there was Samurai. Later on, much later, of course, was things like Samurai Jack, Dexter's Laboratory. All that stuff is really really good as far as animation. Um, so yeah, I like those ones in terms of like shows. Some of the newer things, like some of the shorts you'll see like on Love, Death, and Robots is really good. I like a lot of that stuff. I like the Tron animated series that was designed by Robert Valley. Um, what else is um, trying to think what else was what I really really liked over time that was animated. Well, the sequel to the Batman animated series, right? The what's its face? The future one. That one was really good. What I liked about them too is like they're very efficient in their animation, so they came with really simple designs. And DC really relied on that kind of design approach for a long time, just because it's made things a lot cheaper and easier to make, and it's far more efficient at what they wanted. And then they started kind of gradually making it less look like the what's his face, who's the artist there who did all that. What's his name? Why can't I think of his name? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, something to think about. I'm thinking about doing an actual comic book. Like I have a short story written up, and something I'm actually thinking about. Um, Um, what else did I like? I mean, those ones always kind of stick out in my head. I really, really like Samurai Jack. That also kind of leaned into that kind of simpler animation style. Simpsons, of course, but I don't really consider Simpsons as much animation just because it wasn't. Animation really wasn't the focus of it. It was more just like a drawn sitcom kind of thing. So even though it's animated, it's not like it was, the animation was what called people in there. The elegance and way that it's animated. Like it's not really what it's about. Sort of, but not really in the same way that like those Batman series were. This was a good animation. Oh, it's been over an hour. That's it. So, but wild out the hair a little bit. Put another got a set of buns down here. What if we another kind of setup here? Satoshi Kori. I'm not familiar with that name. It's not French, is it? There's a lot of movies I like. Akira is pretty great. Although I think I prefer the manga over the movie still. Who else? Of course, all the as far as movies animated, like all the Hayao Miyazaki stuff is really good, of course. But I can look up Satoshi Kori if I spot to write that down. Satoshi Kori. Okay, I've heard the name. I've heard of Paprika and Perfect Blue, but I have not watched them. But I wasn't. I didn't know the name. I didn't know that was one person for all those films. I'm trying to think what other animated TV shows that I like, or animated shows, not animated TV, not films. So those are the ones that I mainly think about. But that was, of course, I was younger when those were on. Well, there's what's it called, Cowboy Bebop. That's a pretty solid show, right? I have I loved. I don't know if it's that good anymore, but I really liked the old Robotech original series. Was it Macross Robotech or whatever? When that came out when I was younger, and I had to watch that on VHS, like a box of VHS tapes that I got from a friend. But I like that stuff. I watched Arcane. I liked the first season. I didn't so much like the second season. It looked great, of course, but like the storytelling was really off. Like a lot of things just didn't make any sense. Its characters would suddenly be doing random things, and it was pretty obvious at the end that like none of the major characters actually died. But yeah, I liked the first season a lot. The second season wasn't that great. I sort of like some of the what's it called, the Castlevania stuff, but the animation always just feels really rough in there. Oh yeah, I've seen that there's movies. I just have. I think I might have bought Perfect Blue or Paprika on iTunes a long time ago. There's a bunch of movies on there I've never gotten around to watching. So, it's like, oh, it's $5 or whatever. I'll pick that up and watch it, and then don't ever get around to it. Yeah, so it's like I wanted to like season two. In fact, I watched up through I think like episode 6 or something, and then didn't come back to it for like 3 or 4 weeks. They're not that long. Oh, I'm really enjoying what's it called? What's that? Uh, well, they did this. What's it called? Scavenger's Reign. Um, which was that was pretty solid. And they've got a new series that they're doing about a guy who found like an actual panacea. So he found like this mushroom that cures everything. Wounds, cancer, whatever. And it's this kind of guy who's like a super genius loner type he's on the run from the people the pharmaceuticals and government people that are trying to kill him to prevent this drug from being unleashed on the world. Yeah, Scavenger's Reign, that was pretty good. A lot of creative stuff in there. Sad I didn't get a season 2, but I think it ended pretty well, if I recall. Yeah, they've got it's like something side effects, or there might be side effects, or side effects include, I think, something like that. Actually, I need to watch. There's a 3rd episode, I think, just came out the other day, so I need to watch that. But it's really solid storytelling. The characters are kind of interesting. It's on HBO. Yeah, the storytelling is. I think it's better. I think the storytelling is better in this than Scavenger's Reign, but I liked a lot of what was going on in Scavenger's Reign. I think they put Scavenger's Reign on Netflix. It used to be just on HBO. That's where it came out on, and then it never really caught on because a lot of it, like, there's a lot of strange stuff in there, like because they're on this alien planet. They make sure everything definitely feels alien, which I think is good. I always appreciate that. I don't want you to feel like they're just Earth animals, looking strange. Like a James Cameron movie or something where it's just like they're just flying lizards or whales with different attachments or something. Like they really go kind of out there with a lot of the creature design and plants and flora and fauna on Scavenger's Reign. They did put out a trailer for a season 2, kind of like a speculative trailer, what they wanted to do, but it was already canceled at that point. Madhouse Studios. No, I don't know the name. What have they made? Let me see. Write that down here. Madhouse. Fallout, I thought it was okay. They did have this trope, and I've seen it in a number of movies where it's kind of, and they made fun of it, and I think it was the movie Get Out. A little bit. It's like this, where like a black guy is simping after a white girl, like chasing her around. And I think the movie Get Out, they kind of made fun of that in there. Because it almost got him killed. But usually it's like a black guy who's got like a really weak will, and they did that in Fallout, which was kind of annoying. Just like, come on, what's the deal? Like there was an interesting TV series on Netflix. They only went for one season. It was 1981, and it's kind of this Lovecraftian story about this guy who's like, they wanted to transcribe some old tapes or something, but he has to do it on location. And it turns out to be this like tapes from this white girl from the 80s, and she's kind of discovering this cult. of some kind of cult that's dealing with like a Cthulhu type situation, basically. And but it's a similar situation. So he's like getting into this. He's kind of this weak-willed black guy who's chasing this white girl around, and it's this weird trope you see in films pretty often. I'm not sure what's driving it. But you kind of saw that a lot, I think, in that Fallout show. And it's like there's another thing I see in movies. I call it the compliment scene. And basically, there'll be some scene where, I think it happened in Fallout 2, if I recall correctly. But basically, the bad guy will be like trying to kill a girl, but the whole time he's like telling her how awesome she is. You don't just see it with like fight scenes like that, but you see it pretty often. Like it was in The Last of Us. They're chasing, I forget the name of the girl around. They're about to kill her, and and then she's like chopping these guys that are like 3 times her size apart, and then the leader of them, he's like running around telling her how awesome she is. And he's only known her for like 5 minutes or whatever, but he just immediately starts telling her how cool she is and amazing she is and how wonderful and awesome she is, but he's like trying to stab her at the same time. So it's this kind of very weird movie trope that I've seen pretty often. And I'm like, why is that happening in here? I don't know what's driving that. Some kind of like Hollywood performative thing or something. They did that with Finn in the Star Wars movies, right? With Rey. He's very emotional, very reactive, and then he's like chasing the girls are almost always brunettes too, which is funny too. So in that situation, but it's pretty common. You start noticing these things. You're like, wait a second, what is going on in this movie? Yeah, the compliment scene though is really funny because you see it and you're just like, wait a second, it's time for the compliment scene. It's almost like it's programmed into the show. They have to have the compliment scene. I saw it in there was this alien invasion show on Apple TV back when I had like a free subscription. I watched a bunch of their stuff, and there was this kind of alien invasion show where they had like these weird goopy monsters that were running around everywhere, killing people and taking over the planet. Anyway, there's this Indian lady who's she gets split from her husband. I think he might have been abusive too, or mean or something. But she used to be a doctor, and then she was raising her kids, so she hadn't been a doctor for 10 or 12 years or whatever. And anyway, they get her. She hooks up with these people that are running away from the aliens, and they have like this medical lab or something. And one of her kids wanders off. I think it's been a long time. One of her kids wanders off, and then she comes across this person who's sick. And she like has some little comment about it, like what her thoughts on kind of what's going on. But it wasn't even like a very in-depth one; it was just like a quick little statement. And immediately, all the doctors there, and she hasn't been practicing in like 10 years or something like that. They immediately start telling her how much they need her, how awesome she is, and that they can't get by without her. That they really need her to like suit up and start doctoring all over the place, and it's just weird. To watch, because she hasn't been a doctor in a long time. She might not be caught up on the literature or whatever's going on, and because she made some comment about someone who was sick or infected by these aliens or whatever, suddenly they desperately need her. But it's weird because it's not like they demonstrate that; they just tell you that they need her. So it's like she makes one little comment and it shows that, oh, we need her desperately, as opposed to, maybe there's an emergency situation and she's, the only one with any medical experience around, like someone gets stabbed or falls on something or whatever. And so she immediately, jumps in and like seals the wound and helps them out. Like they demonstrate her skill. And then they're like, oh yeah, maybe we could use her help with some things or whatever. Or maybe she does like a really exceptional thing in the moment, and they're like, "Oh wow, you are incredible. We really need your help." But they'll do that compliment scene, which I was just, and usually it's like it's not relative to whatever's actually happening in the show. And I don't know if that has to do something with the difference between like male and female psychology. But if you saw like a similar situation with like a male character, typically what you would expect would be the other doctors around would be really skeptical, and they challenge him on this or that issue or have some questions or whatever. If you look at like a character like say Indiana Jones is always a classic one where they're always telling him that they need him to do things, but they're also kind of treating him like he's like an idiot who doesn't know what he's doing half the time, and he's kind of just barely hanging on and surviving most of the time. Like he's not really succeeding as much as he is like surviving usually in the shows and the movies. At least I haven't seen the recent ones, but in the original ones, like the main reason he like triumphs over evil or whatever isn't so much that he does something specifically as he just kind of holds on. It's like in what's it called? In the first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, like he just kind of follows Marion to the island, and then he surrenders, right? Because they're threatening to blow up the. He wants to blow up the Ark, and then he's like, "Yeah, I want to see what's inside too," and so he surrenders to the French guy and the Nazis, and then he just they're tied up and he just closes his eyes, right? That's how he wins. He doesn't look. It's usually some kind of act of will on his part where that's what allows him to survive and thrive in the movie. Yeah, but watch for that compliment scene. Like I should document them. Maybe that would be like a whole YouTube thing with just documenting the compliment scene. But yeah, it's kind of weird to watch. You start watching movies, you're like, wait a second, they're doing that scene again. And Hollywood's full of tropes, right? They do all kinds of like the blue laser in the sky. Is a big one. You see in a lot of sci-fi, superhero films. Some fantasy films, I think, have the blue laser or light in the sky. That's a pretty common trope. How many Spider-Man movie have some kind of blue laser in the sky, or it was fine like the first few times, but after a while you're like, I think you guys are just making the same movie after a while. But patterns like that always really kind of stick out to me, so I'm just like, yeah, but it's weird once you notice these things. It's like, I mean, maybe it's just the fact that I've just watched too many shows, too many movies, and I'm it makes it easier to kind of spot those things. I watched. I think I made it through the first episode of and a half. That had the compliment stuff going on in there too, with their whatever that version of Galadriel is, whatever that's supposed to be. Um, I didn't make it past. I think I watched it through where she like jumps in the water and starts swimming back across the ocean. And I just laughed. I was just like, this is the stupidest thing I have ever seen ever. um, I think the only thing I did after that was just like watch people make fun of it because I love Lord of the Rings. Like I've read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings so many times when I was younger. But I was just laughing. I was just like, all right, I no. This is like the silliest thing ever I've ever seen in my life. There was a lot of like good concept art done for. I remember seeing artists post their work online. Um, but yeah, I noped out pretty quick on that show. I think it probably had it had that compliment scene stuff going on in there too, where the characters all tell her how awesome she is. I think we had a lot of that in that newer Star Trek stuff too, with the ship that can go anywhere with mushrooms. Um, with the girl in that one. I mean, it's funny because like I remember watching the first season of that, and this girl, because of her insubordination, she caused a war between the Federation and the Klingons that killed untold hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people, and then they put her back in like a position of authority. And I was just like, I'm sorry, but anyone who does that, like, you don't get to drive a spaceship anymore. Like, maybe you go work on a farm or, go get a desk job somewhere. But I don't think you get to, you know, uh, you know, be an important starship captain after that point. Like, I think you've expired all of your credits at that point, and you need to probably. I forgot about that. I hadn't thought about that show in a long time. Was it Discovery, I think, or something like that? I didn't like the design of the show either. It was like everything was hard edged, which is not really a Star Trek aesthetic. So it had like the discs and the engine things on there, whatever they're called, but um, but everything was like super sharp, hard edged rather than smooth and nice, nicely designed curves and all like the way that Star Trek should really look, in terms of the Federation at least. And I wanted it to be good, but I just as I watched, I was just like, this show doesn't really make any sense. I guess they put out a new movie that like everybody hated, like it was universally panned, as they say, and I did see they're making a third season of Rings of Power, so I think they spent like $500 million on that show, and so I think they're kind of obligated to kind of finish it out, kind of thing. Um, Good morning over there, Dutch Master. Um, Yeah, because I want these things to be awesome, but they just really don't want to make them awesome. I've like one of the things too is I noticed a lot of like games and films. They'll have characters that are supposedly thousands of years old, but they act like a petulant 20-year-old. Which is another kind of weird thing. It's like they have like an overreactionary, emotional 20-year-old, and I don't get why. And I think it's maybe just because I think maybe the writers and the people developing these shows, like they can't empathize outside of themselves or something. Because you would think someone who's a few thousand years old, like a Galadriel, would be less kind of reactive. Because even in like the Rings of Power, she's supposed to be really, really old. And you'd think someone with kind of that age would have a certain amount of wisdom. Witcher, I think I watched the first season. I remember it not making any sense. That's all I remember about it. I watched it, I'm like, I don't understand. I knew there was all these time jumps, but they didn't do it in a way where I could follow what was happening very well. And I've never played the game, so I'm not as familiar with the story. And I haven't read the books. So maybe I should read the books. I've heard people like them, but it's basically these characters that there's kind of an older fantasy character that it's based on. Elric, I think, or something like that. The original books before there was the Witcher books. There's Elric or something like that. The Eternal Warrior or whatever it's called. Old school fantasy. But I remember watching the show and like I don't understand what the story is here. Yes, I did watch the first season. I know there's like a couple more, I think, seasons. But but anyway, I think I'm going to finish up here, morning study, and move on to the next parts of my day, which is a little bit up in the air. So we'll see what I actually get done today. Let's see, 25/02/15. It's important to put the dates on your sketchbook. If you haven't done a lot of drawing, like it might not seem that important because you remember all of your drawings because you haven't done that many. But as I've gotten over time, I've got stacks of sketchbooks that far exceed what you could see in the camera view here on my desk, and not all of them I did a good job on keeping track of everything. But it's important to kind of write the dates on things. If you're using like a reference source, that really helps too. I'm just using these little action figure things that I picked up recently. These mannequins, T13 mannequins off of Amazon. Like 5.5 inches, so I think the 13 is for centimeters. But I think they're pretty handy. So I'm using them to pose and figure out things. But yeah, thanks everybody that came in. I appreciate it, and I should be back tomorrow morning, if not later today. And we'll chat at you later. Bye.